Good evening. I hope I find you well. A Vision, A Better Vision, a book written by Father Chris Hayden, a professor in Maynooth, a professor of oral theology and that in Maynooth. And he gave a talk about the human person, understanding, living, and sharing the Catholic vision for human. So he spoke. It was between 1 and 2. He spoke for half an hour, and then there was questions, and which was good. And he was very clear in describing the human person and the secular view of sexuality and the Catholic view of sexuality. And he explained very ably that the Catholic view of sexuality is more moral and more clear. The other is not anything that gives any good to the human person, because can be abused and that type of thing. So what they proclaim does not help the person, and I think we know that it leads to a very bad end. Generally speaking, you have to treat people with respect, and particularly in the sexual area, and but in a great business in the Catholic faith. Now he spoke, and he spoke very well, and then there was questions, and it was organised by the Iona Institute, and David Quinn was on hand, and he was very articulate in describing some things that some people asked questions, but I spoke first. Because I was there, early enough, so I had a good seat. It was with my hand and spoke, and he was mentioning a lot of things, and but the word confession, the sacrament of confession didn't come out. So I mentioned that straight off. And he mentioned something about reconciliation, but it's known as the sacrament of confession. I mentioned, for example, because you were talking about people choosing the wrong path, if you like, the Catholic view has the respect for the woman and vice versa in the Marriage Act and that type of thing, and not to abuse or use people in the way that the secular one goes, and there's no kind of respect and sort of you can go astray very quick on that area. But when you're young, sometimes you often go down a wrong road in various ways. Let's face it. But we've the great sacrament of confession, which I mentioned, and I also then mentioned that my young days churches was packed because the universal language of Latin was the order day, and I was an altar boy. And I also mentioned that there was usually a parish priest and 2 or 3 cures and masses and all the rest of it, and altar rails and people receiving Holy Communion. I didn't go on too long about it, and I just said that there was vocations in All Hallows, and there was any amount of priests, so that there was no shortage even for the missions. So, and then I mentioned that with the changes that they did and taking out the altar rails and all the rest of it, it resulted in and changing the format with the rosary and benediction and all the rest of it. That it suddenly it went from having vocations, plenty of vocations, but so that's barely enough. And now, instead of the majority packed in the Catholic faith, only 10 or 15% do. The rest are lapsed, so they're so in grave danger. So just briefly, and but later when it was over, some people asked questions about married priests and that, but the business of the Anglican, they have churches having to close and that, and have the married clergy, and it doesn't provide the answers either that the priests have plenty of understanding. They're not just deprived in that way. They've chosen a path, and the Holy Spirit and so on and so forth guides them on that. It's a question that I think there was a woman asked it, and she kind of pursued it a bit, but I think it's a stupid question, quite frankly. Priests have a vocation, and it's a good vocation, but there are priests that have been Anglican and come to the Catholic faith and are already married, and they got dispensation for that. And some of them are very good. But you can't serve two masters sometimes. You celebrate Mass and then you have the family to the concerns there. And he spoke very good. But I did raise those issues that when the changes then come, certainly the vocations have drifted. And I mentioned if it wasn't for Indian and African priests, there'd be a lot of churches in this country even closed. And funny enough, when the thing was over and some of the staff, I became a member of it, the Catholic library service, and it's quite good, going for over 100 years, I was told. But some of the people there said they supported exactly what I said. So there might have been others. And I gave some leaflets and I gave some cards that I have supporting the Christian TV Ireland project because a lot would know about it. And I mentioned that the media, print media, with the exception of the Catholic papers, the print media and the TV, all don't promote anti-Catholic. And so all these things conspired, and it's not good. People supported that, I noticed afterwards. Even the staff there supported it. And one man said he gets Mass in Harrington Street in the Latin Rite, and gets it every day. And that's great. I mentioned that we have one in Navan. I live in Oldcastle, but the priest there was a convert. He's a very holy type of man, but he speaks too fast, and I don't know what he's saying. You need to speak slow so people can understand. So it was a very interesting day, and I didn't get home until nearly halfway because I got a book from this Catholic library service, and to join, I joined, and €15 for a third pay for our students, providing them a card, and which is not for a year. And if I wanted to keep the book a bit longer, I could ring them, and then it'd be extended. So I found them very good. And had a bit of a chat and gave a couple of cards around and left a couple of leaflets in where there's other little items for to nourish the Catholic faith. So it was very good and I totally enjoyed it. So I'm just sharing that with you. And I might speak more about it tomorrow, please God, because there's only so much you can say, isn't that right? So yeah, we'll finish at that, and then we'll finish with the with even prayer to our Blessed Mother. Bye now.